Great. Thank you, all of the health tech folks, for being here. We did have a few others. Let's just double check, make sure, see if I'm missing anything here for others who have joined. I don't think so. So we will go ahead and get started. Welcome. For those of you who don't know, which I think we have all been in something. Oh. Hello, good morning, Kim.
Hi, sorry, my computer was having some trouble this morning.
It's okay, I understand. It's just wanting it to hurry up and be over on Friday, right?
Yes.
Welcome, happy Friday. We were just getting started. All right, so welcome everyone to the Business Analysis Primer class. I'm Pam Hatcher. I'm going to be your trainer today. And this class is meant to be an introduction to business analysis for an understanding of that and its benefits. And then if you are a certified project manager or a certified business analyst, you can obtain 2 strategic PDUs from this class today. And that will be awarded to you when you complete. You'll be able to get that once you complete the training evaluation, which is on the LMS. So welcome, and so glad you are here with us today. So just a couple of logistics to make sure we understand this is a 2-hour class. The session is being recorded as far as the presentation, so we will make that available to you on the learning management system. And please remember to mute your microphone either on your computer or your phone, whichever device you're using to access. And but feel free to ask questions anytime, right? Unmute yourself, show your video as much as possible. This class is for you, and I want to make sure that you stay engaged and are engaged and that you get the most from it. So asking questions is part of that. Taking notes is part of that. Obviously, the recording and any other materials on the LMS, all of that is available to you to help. I always throw in a little stat at this point for the engagement piece and for learning in general, because every day we're learning something, and in each given day we usually lose 50 to 80%. So that's pretty high of what we learn every day. And then 97% is lost after 30 days. So taking notes helps retain it, asking questions, and going back to the materials at whatever given point. So just so you know for that. All right. There should have been, so the LMS, our learning management system, you can access this presentation, which is in PDF form there. There's also a template we're going to be referring to. You should have gotten and received the LMS login information from us, which comes straight from Talent, Celerity.talent LMS, and the username and password was also listed in that. So let me know if you have any issues there, but that's what we're accessing today. And I'll also pull it up on the screen once we get to the template. So, all right. So again, my name is Pam Hatcher. I'm a senior consultant with Health Tech Solutions and Celerity. I am PMP certified and have approximately 30 years of experience in education, training, learning and development, organizational leadership, and really that comes in a variety of project environments and a very diverse industry base. So lots of industries have I done that in. So I have been with Health Tech and Celerity for almost 2 years now. So still kind of new, if you will. And this is the point in time I'd like Tara to also introduce herself, and then we'll move to class introductions. So Tara's new to our training team at Health Tech and Celerity. So Tara, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Hi, yep, I am very new. I think this is my 3rd week. I've been working in education and some kind of business operations marketing tech support for about 20 years of experience there. So all over the place, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Very good. Thank you, Tara. Tara is going to help monitor the chat today or provide input along the way. So we will move to everyone else introducing themselves. So if you could, we would like to learn a little bit more about you. You can see on the screen, if you're able to engage by way of video and can take yourself off of or put yourself on video, that's fine. But name, role, organization you're with, and what you want to learn from this class, what you're thinking through from this primer. So whoever would like to start, go for it.
I'll start. This is Shannon Berry. I've been with Health Tech Solutions just over a year now. So I'm also pretty new. I'm a senior consultant, but I've been working on a project with Louisiana as a business analyst. And I wanted to take this course to try and get some tools to bridge the gap and improve the efficiency between the multiple teams that Louisiana has going on for the modules, MMIS module implementations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Welcome. Trish, you want to go?
Being the Southern gentleman I am, I'll be happy to go last.
Well, thank you. All right, someone can go. I just called on someone
I'll
because
go.
I saw it, but yeah.
I'll go. My name is Kim Klejak. I'm from People's Bank, which is right outside of Chicago, Chicagoland area. I'm a business analyst, but I also do project management, some data analysis, and we're helping the bank basically optimize. We're rolling out formal project management right now. So I'm not certified in anything, but we're just kind of dipping our toes into all of this right now. So just anything we can learn to help with business analysis, project management, and how to move ourselves forward just is a great help to us right now.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for choosing us to learn more about it today. All right, next. I don't see Trish listed now, or maybe it's just my screen.
I keep hearing the Jeopardy theme song music playing in the background, so waiting for someone else to jump in there. Can you guys hear me all right? Because Pam, you look frozen on my screen.
Frozen on the screen, but I can hear you.
Okay, great.
There you go.
Hi.
Now you're moving.
Okay, good. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Alan Patton. I've been with HTS now for over 2 years and a senior consultant. Been in technology and healthcare specifically for about 40 years and have been on a number of clients for health tech. Have a background in project management and business analysis and lean, having held certifications in those areas previously, but having let them expire. Currently also serve as the VP for operations, communications, technology, and metrics for my local PMI Nashville chapter. That's me.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I see Trish, yes. And oh, there we go.
I think that, yeah, I switched. I was on my phone. I don't think it was working. So I was trying to talk and you weren't hearing me. So I guess I'll go back. So you want me to go?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am Trish Alexander. I am a early joiner to HTS. I joined in 2014. I have one of the people that has the single email address. So I started off as a programmer for years, many years as a mainframe programmer, a lot of Medicaid. I go back to 1990 with Kentucky Medicaid. I'm currently working on as a test manager, quality manager for the Kentucky SI and Louisiana SI, and then I'm float around. I'm helping with RFPs. I just kind of get pulled into different things, but I've been in programming for numerous years, and I've actually been a business analyst, but never technically trained. So I wanted to see what this course was like, see if it would be helpful to some of my team, and just figured, see what the terminology that you're all using and make sure I'm still in line with it all. But I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Pam.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank all of you. Yes, welcome again. So glad you are here. You've chosen to spend time with us. So as we do spend these 2 hours together, here's our focus, all right? Business analysis is sometimes seen as just an added activity or just added activities in general without adding substantial value to the organization. So there's a lot to learn about business analysis, but this is only a 2-hour class, right? So this is 2 hours long. We're going to discuss some of the high-level concepts, keep it at that high level and understand terminology and some commonalities between project management and business analysis, where the business analyst role fits, that kind of thing. So if you need more in-depth, we have classes, obviously, that would do that, and you can look into those, so check those out for other courses. But today, we're going to work toward an understanding of the basic business analysis vocabulary, describe the importance and value of business analysis for project success, understand the relationship between business analysis, project management, and organizational change management, and learn application of business analysis skills, because there are particular skills, using basic tools, templates, and techniques. Okay, so first, let me just give a brief overview, just a little bit of information on our company for those of you who aren't or who don't know about Health Tech. Health Tech Solutions is a technology and project management consulting firm. So people are going to come to us when they need help managing multiple initiatives, multiple projects, defining a strategic direction or organizational alignment. And they really are seeking out our expertise and the experience to help bring efficient processes, organizational functions, when they need assistance scaling up, or the technology behind the services we provide in a variety of fields, including technology, health IT, and enterprise project management offices. So that experience in the project and program management area is really what we are sought out to do. And we were founded in 2011. And then just over 2 years ago, a company called Celerity, which is now a division of Health Tech Solutions, was purchased, and that brought to Health Tech an integrated approach to business consulting and training specifically. So we have what's on the screen as this integrated project or integrated practices management model. And you can also see why clients come to us. So there's strategic planning, there's organizational change management services, the business analysis pieces, business intelligence and Power BI, and then the customizable training courses. So there are public offerings, and this course is a public course that we offer. This is part of our model for a free or the primer class that allows individuals to be introduced to an area, to a subject, to a topic, to a skill set, to something to do with, obviously, the world of project management, business analysis, or any of these areas. We also provide the learning and development and that customized training for those contracts that we are awarded. So people in our practices are centered around just what it says, those core values of the highest quality and making sure that we're delivering those results on time and on budget. So a little bit about us, and then we'll dive into business analysis. So that's what we're all here to do. Are there any initial questions or something you can think of right now, or something that before we get started with the content? We're going to talk about the importance of business analysis and discuss some common terminology, because as business analysts, it's important that we use best practices terminology within the profession, obviously, so others understand it. We help others understand it. We understand it ourselves. So this is a professional responsibility for any business analyst, just like there are professional responsibilities for project management to do the same. So what we'll start with is saying, okay, what is business analysis? We're laying the foundation here, right? We're talking terminology and definitions and language within business analysis. So it is a set of activities performed to identify business needs and recommend relevant solutions and to elicit, document, and manage requirements. So let that one sink in for a second. It is also the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. We put both of those definitions in both of those bullets there because the first definition is taken from the Project Management Institute Business Analysis for Practitioners. It's a practice guide. There's a picture of that one listed there. And the second definition is taken from the International Institute of Business Analysis, the BA Body of Knowledge, or BABOK, as some refer it. I may say that later, so just so you know what I'm referring to, but both definitions are appropriately defined based on what business analysis is. So then, what is a business analyst? Just as the picture is trying to show, it's a resource for a lot of things, but it's a resource that performs the work of business analysis, which we just defined on the previous slide. So how many of us, which some of us have said we're in a business analyst role right now, you may not formally have that title, you're doing some of the work within business analysis. Would you describe that as sometimes you're in an accidental business analyst role? I heard some giggle because, yeah, that definitely happens for sure. Just like we're accidental project managers sometimes, right? And sometimes we're both in a project, and we'll talk about that as we go. But first, what we want to go into here, obviously there are business analysis competencies, right? Proficient business analysts possess a variety of skills that enable them to operate successfully at a senior level. So many of the skills that those skills are soft level. But the business analyst is the person assigned by the performing organization to lead the team that's responsible for identifying business needs and recommending relevant solutions. So we'll say that over and over a bunch of times. It's also to elicit, document, and manage requirements. So a good business analyst has a balance of skills across what's on the screen, these 6 competency areas, and there is no priority order. So what we're going to do is talk about right now what the 6 competency areas are, and then we start to dig into additional competencies within each of these areas. And I'll have each of you pretty much read off the list that comes up on the screen in just a little while. But first, for analytical skills, these are used by the business analyst to process information of of various types, because there will be different types and levels of details. So using the analytical skills to do that. Expert judgment, meaning this is going to relate to the skills and knowledge obtained from acquiring expertise in an application area, a knowledge area, a specific discipline or an industry. So you're bringing that expert judgment or that subject matter expertise to it. So there's often, with expert judgment, there's often some parallels to other challenges as well. And we'll see those in just a bit. Communication skills are utilized to provide, receive, and elicit information from various sources. And these can be some of the most critical ones, the most critical skill a business analyst can master. So I would argue it's just about the most critical skill any of us in any kind of position can master. But for today's purposes and the business analysis, there are so many ways you have to communicate. There's so many different people and levels of the organization that you're communicating with. That's why it's one of the 6 core competencies here. Personal skills. This identifies the personal attributes of that individual, right? So that business analysts can build credibility. So the personal skills that you're bringing with credibility of, you know, the honesty, the, you know, the way that you're either approachable or not if there is something going on with a problem, or your reactions to things, and the emotional intelligence that you're bringing to the role of a business analyst. Leadership skills focus the efforts of a group of people toward a common goal and working as a team. So the ability to do that and to recognize all the individuality in that team or a project or the project team, but how to still get those individuals to work together as a team and toward that common goal. Tool knowledge, which enables the business analyst to work more effectively. So note that what is on the screen as far as a reference listed on this slide, all of this is coming from the Project Management Institute guide for our guide to business analysis, and that will be throughout the presentation. So here we are going to break down those 6 core competencies into additional individual competencies within each of those areas. So the first one is the analytical skills that we talked about. So Alan, if you can read that first for me, that would be great.
Sure. Creative thinking, conceptual and detailed thinking, decision-making, design thinking, numeracy, problem solving, research skills, resourcefulness, and systems thinking.
Very good. And as we go through each of these, think what you're doing now, right? In a project, in your role, business analysis work, all of that. So then as you're thinking of that and you see the list, let's say at the end of each of these, is there anything that we would add to that? Is there something that you think needs to also go in this category? And that's for anybody, not just Alan who read it. Can we think of any others? And we will go to expert judgment, remembering what that is, expert judgment. Kim, can you read that for us?
Sure. Enterprise organizational knowledge, business acumen, is that how you say that word?
Acumen. Yep, that's how I say it anyway, acumen.
Business acumen, industry knowledge, life cycle knowledge, political and cultural awareness, product knowledge, and standards.
Right. Very good. So expert judgment in these areas, or the skills, the competencies for being a subject matter expert. Anything looking at that or listening or knowing where that fits within what you're doing right now? Would anybody add anything?
Tribal knowledge is probably similar to industry knowledge.
That's good.
Something, yeah, about the specific topic.
That's very good. Yeah.
You know, being a Southerner, sometimes we just say plain old common sense. So might be helpful.
Right. And that works no matter where we're from, honestly.
That's right.
Yes, that is a very, very good one. Very good. Because, you know, the common sense, yes, it's a project. Yes, there's a subject. Yes, it's, you know, what is going on within that world right there. But the common sense and that expert judgment that brings, I think, is a very good point. Good. Anyone else? All right, next one. Communication skills. Shannon, can you read that one?
Sure. Active listening, communication, tailoring, facilitation, nonverbal and verbal communication, visual communication skills, professional writing, and relationship building.
Very good. Thank you. Same question. Anybody add anything to this one?
One that's, let me just look over the list again. How about negotiation
Mm,
skills
I love it. Yes.
or ability to influence?
Very good. Yes. Now, some people might say that's communication tailoring, right? Influencing and doing that. But I agree. I love the call out of each of those separately. And sometimes people also add emotional intelligence even in this area too, right? So that's something else to think about. Very good. Good. So these are great additions, I think. Now, again, this is being based on, you know, the PMI version of all of this, but absolutely, I think all of this ties in. So that's a great view. All right, we'll keep going. Personal skills. I don't know. Did everyone do one? I don't know.
This is Trish. I have.
Oh, yes, Trish, please. Thank you.
We have adaptability.
Ethics, learning, multitasking, objectivity, self-awareness, time management, and work ethic.
Very good. Thank you. Anything anyone would add here?
I'm wondering if more than just self-awareness, but awareness of the landscape, be it political or personality or what have you.
I like that. Right. And that's a combo of, to me anyway, communication skills, personal skills, emotional intelligence. I think it all kind of goes together. But yes, that is a very important competency to understand, to know how to even get to know appropriately the landscape and the politics or the political environment. And I say to get to know it appropriately because obviously there are things, you know, you would want to avoid from a personal skills level. So good. I like that.
I think on the PM side, we might lump that all together under stakeholder awareness or stakeholder engagement. Yeah.
True. Yep. Good point. Very good. Leadership skills. Tara, you want to take one? And I'll take the last one. If everybody has gone, right? I think.
Sure. Change agent skills, negotiation skills, personal development skills, trusted advisor skills.
There's usually feedback here, but I'm interested from this group to see, is there anything you would add or change or?
What about mentoring?
Very good. I was going to say that one always comes up, and coaching, right? Coaching and mentoring. Yeah.
I was going to say listening, but I guess
Yep.
it's all in there.
Yep. Good. Very good. Thank you, Tara, for reading that. And tool knowledge, communication and collaboration tools, desktop tools, reporting and analysis tools, requirement management tools, and modeling tools. So it's not only, you know, the tools obviously that are out in this field of business analysis and things to use as resources to do the analysis or to elicit requirements. this is saying, do you have the knowledge behind that, and how are you applying that, right, within what tool is being used? So some organizations have the tools that you're going to use, and there may not be a choice. So getting to know and making sure you understand that, but also a way to research and find other tools to bring to your analysis work, and understanding that as well. Is there anything you would add or say about the tool knowledge area? So the importance of understanding these key business analyst competencies, right? Starting with the 6 core competencies, diving deeper into those individual competencies within the 6 core. So that's what we're setting the stage for as a business analyst to perform business analysis work. And having those competencies and those skill sets will help us be successful, because here we're going to show that in the Project Management Institute Pulse of the Profession, which is PMI's annual global survey of project, program, and portfolio managers. So they track the trends, right, in project management. And what has happened, the most recent shows that 37% of projects, right, there's inaccurate requirements gathering. So what that means is inaccurate requirements gathering consistently ranks in the top 3 every year they do this, right? And it's the top 3 causes of project failure. So yet only half of the organizations have the resources in place to even perform this function properly. So digest that for just a second, okay? So they're saying that this is the cause of why projects fail, right? Inaccurate requirements gathering. So that skill set is either lacking as a gap for someone to do that, or they don't have anyone performing that function properly within the organization. So hopefully, even though this is, project failure information, it is a true indication of how important business analysis is. And that is the point to this, and the big takeaway is that as you are in a business analyst role, or you're a project manager in a project that has a business analysis or business analyst role, then knowing what we're talking about today, what does make it successful, what competencies, how all of it needs to be collaborated together, all those things. So this is just to reiterate that point. So there are other, obviously, challenges and success factors that contribute as well. There's several. So there's several that are going to add to the likelihood of success or the likelihood of failure. So yes, we talked about inaccurate requirements being gathered, but you can see on the screen, and these are very similar to project management as well, but you see the challenges. You can see that same thing of if it's a challenge from a sponsorship side, the success of that; on the opposite side, that it is successful because there is strong sponsorship. So that is for projects in general, but from a business analysis standpoint, and those projects they are in, this is the list. So again, the last 6 years, PMI has done the survey. The strong visible sponsorship is always at the top. So it's been listed number 1 for the last several years for projects. So what are some of the challenges? Think through again where you are with what you're doing and what your role is, or what project you're on. What are some of the challenges you've experienced on some of your projects from a business analysis perspective specifically, right? So if you want to list it in the chat, if you want to shout some out, we can have that as part of this time to discuss.
I would say for us, inaccurate requirements is one of our worst ones. And then we tend to not have strong sponsorship from the corporate level or the executive level. They'll tell us to do projects, but when push comes to shove, they won't put the effort behind it that we need.
Gotcha. Okay. Great input. And sometimes the sponsorship is still not even there after you've put the business case and the business need, and you've done what you need to do from a needs assessment standpoint, and you present that, and then I'm hearing the sponsorship sometimes still is not even there as well. So that does happen in projects, unfortunately. Yep. Sorry, Alan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I'm wondering if I'm just old school or what, but I'll give you the scenario. I don't know which PMI or IIBA promotes as far as traceability and then testing associated with the requirements for validation and test plans and so on. So there's a bit of BA work and kind of blended in with PM and QA kind of all together there. But, I think the only way you can really know, are you delivering what is requested and expected, is if you've got, clear requirements for building the solution or process or whatever it is.
Right.
And ultimately having some way to test and validate that those expectations are being met.
Yes.
So do we have that?
Agree. We do. We talk about traceability
Okay.
a little bit more in this primer than we do testing necessarily, but understanding that, yes, that I don't think that's old school at all. That is part of business analysis work, and the vitality of making sure that it's done when it needs to be done and it's done appropriately, and how those requirements really set the tone for everything, and the importance of having to get that right at the beginning. So yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering how much of it is real world versus the PMI way of doing things, so to speak. They mandate this is the way you do projects, but in real world reality, we know that the vast majority of projects aren't run that way.
Right.
And we see them kind of realizing that and making that adjustment to their mandated processes and so on. So I didn't know if BAs were going that direction too or not.
They are. That's a very good point to talk about here as well. They are. So while this is still PMI land and terminology and language, we have blended, like we've said, the IIBA as well, but they are taking a look and doing the same changes and making the same adjustments to business analysis work from the PMI standpoint as they did in some of the great changes they've made recently with project management and that approach and the structure and PMI land of a project, more real world, I'll call it, right? They're doing the same thing with business analysis.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. So thank you for that input, and knowing, obviously, there are always challenges with everything, but hopefully the success factors outweigh that in the projects that you have. So what we want to see now are, again, we incorporate different language, different terminology, different things to think about within each section that we're going through today. And so now, before we conclude this introduction, because this is an intro into, this is an introduction of business analysis, from a very high level. So here, what we mean by focus areas or specialties is just that, right? So knowing that you need to figure out what business analysis approach, right? You identify organization, business needs and opportunities, and then conduct what's appropriate within that approach. We want you to understand that business capability analysis defines and models policies and market approaches. So what really can we do as an organization to perform the work that we need to do? Systems thinking interprets business rules and requirements for technical systems. So this is really from a holistic and a detailed point of view, just like we have on the screen, and making sure that from the business rules and what's going on that way, and those requirements for the technical pieces and a technical system that's needed for that, how is all of that being approached and mapped out? And then process modeling standardizes processes and workflows. So this literally visually shows the steps taken in a process, or something that a human or a person has to do to interact with that solution. And process modeling is very effective to do that, to make sure that the workflow is there, to see where it is, process mapping, and understanding that what can be standardized, is being reviewed and approached and built into the analysis for what's going on. Okay. So questions before we go into our next area, which is business analysis framework. All right. So our next topic, just as I said, covers the business analysis framework from an overall perspective. I will be repeat on that as well, because again, this is a 2-hour course for an introduction into business analysis. There's no way we can cover the details of some of these areas. So giving you the framework at the high level with additional details on the knowledge areas, that's our approach for our time today. Okay, so we talked about business analysts, right? Kind of what it does, what business analysis does, and then skills and the competencies of a business analyst. Now let's talk about where it fits. So you can see on the left side, we have the good old definition that we've already said a bunch of times, right? So business analysis, the activities to identify business needs, recommend those relevant solutions, enable change by defining the needs that are necessary to do so. And it's done by eliciting, documenting, and managing those requirements. So business analysis, right? According to Project Management Institute, a project on the right side is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Projects are also progressively elaborated, and as more information becomes available, that's how the project goes, right? Projects are all about deliverables. They're all about some new product or some new something, right? Because there's a change. There's something that needs to be fixed. There's something that needs to change. There's an upgrade that's needed, whatever the case may be. That's what a project is, and the emphasis is on the underlying words, right? That is from progressive elaboration. It's an iterative process, understanding the detail, project plans, and the amount of information about the project increases as it goes, but definitely how that is being defined and what goes into that plan is, would you say, both. It's the role of the business analyst, but the key to all of this is that middle handshake, right? The project manager and the business analyst perform critical leadership roles on projects, period, the end. And underlined and bolded, collaboration is the key. It is absolutely the key to make sure that all those success factors that we talked about and no project failure, right? So when the project manager and business analysts work in partnership and collaborate or cooperate effectively together, then that's when the project is much higher and has a much higher chance of being successful. So also keep in mind the project manager and business analyst relationship is not always optimally, can't ever really say that word, aligned, right? And that's the reality. Sometimes there's confusion that comes into play, right? Because what happens, there's some overlap, sometimes some inconsistency of the definition of those roles if those two roles are very defined in an organization or in that project, and two different people are serving those roles. But yes, there can be some overlap, but the most common way, I guess to say it, or the most common difference between the roles is the BA, so that business analyst focuses on the product, and the project manager focuses on the project. So that's not to oversimplify, that's just to give you a framework of there's a project, there is something going on and changing. And the project manager manages the project as a whole, and the business analyst and that analysis work comes into play in that project based on the product and those requirements and what they're working toward together on to accomplish. Make sense at all? What else would you all add to that? Anything? I'll also say, how many of you work right now? Well, let's first say, because I kind of heard it in introductions, but who works in both roles currently or ever have?
This is Kim. I do both.
Yeah. Okay. Size of the project, size of the organization, you know, lots of factors come into play why one person plays in both roles, right? Have any of you been in just one role or the other? Or just a business analyst role?
Yes.
Okay, I heard a yes. And then how, you know, how was the working relationship with a project manager? Is there anything we can learn from, or you could tout that was so successful when you were a business analyst and you worked with a project manager? Just trying to get a sample before we move on.
I think I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that my experience was probably atypical and not typical, because I worked for a very mature healthcare organization at that time. They had very clear role delineations, and you were assigned so many different projects or engagements, if you will, that you really didn't have time to color outside your own lines, so to speak. So as a BA, you kind of stayed within your domain and your specialty, and that's what I liked about it, is that you were respected. The company and the leadership showed respect for the roles and the work that was being done in those domains.
And that is critical. That's huge. But that's a great example. Very good. And yes, I see Alan's comment as well, right? There's going to be times that you may be wearing both hats, but you're also, you know, as you wear both hats, both roles need to be 100 or 110%, right? So that gets very, very challenging. So just understanding that collaboration is the key. And when the roles are defined, or as in there is a project manager and there is a dedicated business analyst performing the role together, those roles together within that project, and the collaboration that takes will absolutely set you apart and set you up for success. So, all right. Next, we have just a reminder for those who are project manager certified, and a great intro into those project management process groups if this is the first time you're seeing it. So what we're saying here is that project management, because again, think where we are. We're talking all the framework and where business analysis comes into play. So project management is broken down into 5 process groups. We see the first 2 here, initiating and planning. Okay, so there are several courses, obviously, that talk about project management and will further your understanding of project management. We also have project management professional certification exam, prep courses, all of that. But for today's purposes, knowing that these process groups are the focus in a project, and where that comes into play from the business analysis side is providing the framework. So quickly from initiating, this should, this gives us a question, right? Should we do this project or not? Should we do this project or phase of what's happening? And if we should, because you've put the right information together from a business needs standpoint and a business case standpoint to take that to even be approved, a go or no go, that's what we mean by initiating in that process group. Then you have planning within a project. What will we do? How are we going to plan to even do what we're doing? And there's tons of tools and things that come into play to use there. Executing, let's follow our plan. Everybody follow the plan now. So making sure that as that project manager leading the whole project and managing the whole project, understands how to have everyone follow that plan with the business analysis and business analyst support all along the way. Monitoring and controlling. Is the plan still valid? So we're monitoring what's taking place and we're trying to see what changes have happened. Is there a variation to what we started with, and how, if that changes, what do we need to correct along the way and how do we need to adjust? And then closing, which is the last one, is just, all right, the project has ended. Everything, has been done. The information needs to be saved. You need to make sure that you can access it later. Again, this is the framework from a process group standpoint within a project. And within every project, or why projects even exist, is because of change, right? So the ultimate result of any project is change, because change does happen. So making sure that you understand in this framework your role in how that change affects people. That's where we're going. That's what we mean by having the skill set as a business analyst to know that the reality is the requirements you're putting together, or something that is being elicited, or how you are building those business requirements for that project, it affects people, right? And so the people side of change and the people side of a project is organizational change. And that means there's organizational change management that's part of this framework we're talking about right now, and change affects people. So also, how do you manage the people side of change? Okay, that is called organizational change management, and there are stages. So, or OCM, one or the other, but this addresses the people side of change, and then it consists of 3 main stages. So those 3 are listed here, which is prepare, manage, and reinforce. So are the stakeholders aware of there even needs to be a change, and how have you done that to make them aware or prepared that a change is coming? Do they even desire it at all? Are they going to participate and support it, or are they going to totally be against it? So drawing out that and making sure that you understand that from the get-go as part of the whole entire framework, project or business analyst roles, and then managing that. So let's provide the knowledge on how, right? How to change. So we've prepared them that a change is coming, and here are the requirements for that. How are we going to manage that they understand how to change now that there's a new something to access, or a new process, or a new technology they have to use, and then implementing that based on the desired skills and behaviors that you need to have as an organization in those roles, using whatever that product is or whatever that outcome is. And then what are you doing to sustain the change? How are you going to reinforce what has changed, and that you are reinforcing it as it's going forward in a good way, right? To recognize and reward those who are doing it appropriately, and how do you reinforce that the change is working moving forward? Okay, Any other questions or any questions at this point? All right. Now, looking specifically at business analysis and the knowledge areas, PMI concentrates on 5 key knowledge areas. A knowledge area is a set of processes that are associated with a particular function. Okay, so it's high level here to understand what those 5 are. Then we talk more of a framework, next slide, to talk about how all of what we just described comes together and needs to integrate and work together. And then we'll dive into each of those knowledge areas for specific processes. So that's how we'll spend the next few minutes. All right, so needs assessment, stakeholder engagement, elicitation, analysis, traceability and monitoring, and solution evaluation. Those are the knowledge areas, and we'll get into those particular functions separately. But again, here is what we fondly refer to as the zipper slide, and you'll see when I do my next click where the zipper goes. But key takeaway from here: organizational change management, project management, and business analysis all have stages, groups, areas of knowledge, things that take place, right, in a project. They're complementary of each other, yet they have distinct disciplines of what they're trying to accomplish, as well as keep in mind they do overlap, right? So they're going to overlap in some areas, right, during change delivery, and often like the areas in the middle with that coloring, that's what's overlapping. You can see the needs assessment and solution evaluation on each end under the business analysis knowledge areas. Those kind of take place a little bit prior for a needs assessment. We'll talk about that in detail and what that means. And then the solution evaluation can go on even after the project is over as well. But key takeaway here, right? Making sure that the business analysts and the project managers coordinate their efforts and present a unified front to the organization, as opposed to appearing to be at odds, which sometimes happen because of the roles, or people are upset because they, one thinks the other is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So making sure that you understand, again, back to the other slide, that coordination, collaboration is the key. Okay. So we're going to dive into the business analysis knowledge areas. I will refer to this zipper slide, so watch what we mean, right? A zipper of everything being tightened up, everything being collaborated, everything in the project needs to be, taken as a unified approach. Okay. This just reiterates what we just said for 2 slides prior, which is the business analysis knowledge areas, and those are listed in the middle, kind of toward the middle and the bottom in the graphic. This is saying that stakeholder management, right? So stakeholder management spans across all of the knowledge areas, and that's going to happen, right? So with our next topic, we're going to break down each knowledge area and then those key processes, but this is just another way to show how it all interacts and what the relationship is between the knowledge areas and how it flows, kind of like a workflow. Okay. All right. Let me do a time check here and we'll keep moving. So our next topic, unless there's a question or any comment before we go into all of the knowledge areas. You can also put them in the chat. Haven't missed anything, Tara, have I, in the chat?
Nope, you're good.
Good deal. All right. So needs assessment is going to be first. So our first business analysis knowledge area is needs assessment, and it's about analyzing current business problems or opportunities to understand what is necessary to attain the desired future state. So think about that for a second. Should we, or we should probably ask ourselves, are the current business problems or opportunities understood? So what are they? You're trying to identify them, and are they understood? And if they are understood, what is necessary to take us from that current state of either an opportunity to change something or a problem, and we have to change something to get us to that desired future state? So that is what we are saying within the needs assessment. I'll refer to the zipper slide a lot. So recall from that the needs assessment may need to be added prior to the project even officially beginning, and that's okay. So just keep that in mind. All right. So the processes within needs assessment are listed here. Identifying the problem to be solved or an opportunity to be pursued, assessing the current environment under analysis to understand the important factors that are internal and external to the organization, and determining the gaps in those capabilities so you know what changes are necessary, and we've already said that, for that future desired state, and applying various analysis techniques to determine viable options and provide recommendations, facilitating the development of a high-level product roadmap. So again, making sure that you're planning for that delivery and what's going to be delivered. Are you synthesizing the information to support the selection of the best solution, and what components are necessary for that, right? So that results, if you're doing that, in an assembled business case, which is very important in this needs assessment. That's what you're doing, is trying to put that business case together and assemble it appropriately to take forward, right? And then supporting the project manager by collaborating on project charter development. Okay, so again, that's a very common term, or a very common thing within project management, is a project charter. Typically, that project manager is developing that when there is a business analyst, or that role of analysis from a business analysis standpoint is taking place. It's very important to collaborate and work with that project manager on that project charter. Okay. From some key terms and takeaways from this needs assessment, obviously the needs assessment itself. So we've said that that's the work to be performed to really understand and how to guide the investment decisions. What's really needed to do that. The business need is really, have the existing problems or opportunities been articulated to support the need for change? We talked about that a little bit, but making sure that that happens. The enterprise architecture, what business and technology components are needed to support all of this change. The gap analysis, that's important in business analysis to understand, is there a clear understanding of what is current and what is needed? You've identified that through a needs analysis. So what's the gap? And then with that gap, how do you put things in place to make that change? One other very important factor should also be considered, and that's, as you assess the needs, you assess what's on the screen, the enterprise environmental factors, or EEF, that we refer to. So EEF is that's related to the where and how business analysis is performed. In other words, EEF are the conditions that aren't under the immediate control of the team or the project team that influence or constrain the project directly. So you can see that those environmental conditions do influence, right? But there are other environmental factors that may not, and that's going to impact the success of your project. So Other examples of EEFs are company culture. So the way of working and thinking and what's going on with, how people are acting, the human resources pool, what existing staff do they have, but also what are their responsibilities and how, how easily do they backfill or fill their workforce and what government regulations are out there. So all of those are examples of EEF or enterprise environmental factors. So to put that in practice a little bit, we're going to do an activity. We're going to complete this activity, which is you should have a template on the LMS, which I can pull that up and show you what it looks like. But it is the Enterprise Environmental Factor template. I want you to think about, I'll pull it up in just a second, think about a project that you're on, which is what we've been doing this whole time, something you're working on right now, or if you want to pull from a past project you've worked on, do that. But we want to practice identifying and categorizing. So there's a difference, not just identifying, but we're going to categorize at least 5 enterprise environmental factors on this register that we have as this template. There's no wrong answers. It really just is giving you the practice of thinking through the project, how you're trying to plan for the project, how you're trying to start to do a needs assessment, get to know lay of the land, and give you the practice of completing this template, which is part of the process. So ask yourself, what are the conditions that influence what I'm doing? What are the things that constrain what I'm trying to do? Is there some kind of direct business need or analysis that can be done? So we'll take just a few minutes to do that. Let me show you the template on the screen as well. So we can have that. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Awesome. So don't forget there's a page 2, because yes, a template is great and this register is an effective tool, but we also want to make sure you have a guide, right? This is kind of like a checklist to see and help you think through what kind of factors could be there as far as categories. So obviously use that to help build your list, but I'll leave this up this way. And if you'll take just a few minutes to do that, we'll do a quick debrief and then keep going. Spend a minute or so, and then we'll debrief. Thank you for participating in that. Was it easier or harder to describe the environmental factors and categorize them than you thought?
No, I don't think so.
So it wasn't harder. Good.
Well, I mean, when you because of the little list below, you kind of can go, oh yeah, I know something for that or something for, so you're able to come up with
Good. And
So,
did
yeah.
most of you relate it to projects you're working on then, no matter what role you're in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
past experience. I think a lot of mine is focused because I've always been in programming and development, and so it's very much from the systems perspective. But here at HTS, we kind of get involved in the other parts of that too. So yeah,
Right.
I'll come up with some examples, I guess.
Good. Very good. Anyone else want to share?
I was just going to say with the category list, yeah, it really opens your eyes to, okay, I can look through all of these systematically and figure this out now instead of just staring at that blank spreadsheet.
Right. Exactly. It is, because you're going to know what's going on, right, as you're trying to define the environment in general. But then when you really start to document it and categorize it and figure out how you're going to do something about it, that's a whole different thing, right? So that's a good point. I'm glad that the cheat sheet, I call it, or the checklist, definitely helps. So good.
It also lets you know that somebody else has had that problem before you. So
I can guarantee they have in almost
Yeah.
every situation. Isn't that the
Mhm.
truth? So yeah. So how can you see this being helpful? How can you see this tool being helpful to you? Whether it looks like this or you make it your own version, obviously that's up to you. We want to give you a tool to take away today, but how would you see like the next step of this? What do you think you would do with this after you're getting things documented?
I think this becomes our project risks list.
Very good. Yes. Yep. And do you think let's pretend that they're two separate roles, right? You just completed this as the business analyst, right? And so then the project manager is completing one more than likely because of the whole entire project, right? So once you collaborate and compare and start to build the overall plan based on these and put them into the risk categories and all the other constraints and the things that go on, there might be some overlap, but that is an important next step, is to start to build it into any risk that you're seeing, and then gaps in where you're trying to get, all of that to help you. So the point is, coming from a couple different directions, right, from each role, but how it all goes into the same project and collaborating together is the key. Yep, very good. All right. So let me get back over here. If there's no more questions, we'll go on. So from that, we're going into our second business analysis knowledge area. Sometimes a tongue twister for me. That's why I slow down and say the words the way I do sometimes. So business analysis, if you say that over and over and over, it really starts to sound funny to me. So, all right. So we're on the second one, which is stakeholder engagement. The first one was needs assessment. So we're saying, have we identified and analyzed those who have an interest in the outcome of the solution, right? So as to collaborate and communicate with them because they need to be part of it, right? This knowledge area really, really requires collaboration across the project management, those groups, and the OCM disciplines, right? So both of those disciplines, really what you're bringing is a collaboration. So we say that to go back to the zipper slide every single time, but huge focus to collaborate on this. So the processes identified or included in stakeholder engagement knowledge area are listed here. Again, not going into depth. I'm giving overall views of what each of those processes are and describing it. But if there are, other classes that you're seeing, we have tons of them to do so that really dive deep into these and give more detailed examples. But identifying individuals, groups, or organizations that may impact or be impacted or perceive themselves to be impacted by an area under assessment is obviously, how and what you're doing to try to identify stakeholders. Researching and analyzing quantitative and qualitative stakeholder information, determining appropriate methods to effectively engage and communicate with those stakeholders throughout the whole entire product life cycle, conducting shared agreement regarding business analysis activities, making sure that you're determining whether the organization is even prepared for a transition and then how you're going to move them from current state to future state, engaging and communicating with stakeholders to foster their appropriate involvement in business analysis activities, and assessing the effectiveness of the business analysis practices. So anything surprising or stand out or something you might want to discuss from this screen? A lot of it is obviously, the same types of processes in an overall project, but is there anything that stands out that would be very specific? Or I'll ask it this way. The bullet of conduct business analysis planning. Do you think that's a separate activity and a separate type of process, a standalone type process, in addition to the project management planning that takes place?
I'd say yes.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not a trick question, and it's just think of it that way, because even if you're serving in both roles, you need to bring the business analysis activities and those processes into play with what you're doing, and then build that into your overall project planning. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? And why it would be a separate, activity. Okay. Key terms to take away from here: process flows. We talk about this a lot in many different environments, but really are the steps that the people perform in their jobs visually being depicted. Can't say the importance of that enough. So this is going to further extend the transition to the future state and make sure that those stakeholders know and take away how to perform their jobs. It's very, very important. Stakeholder register, I'm sure almost everyone's familiar with that. So making sure that, the analysis is done even on each individual stakeholder, right? And documented so you know how to assess and classify them and how they would like to be communicated with, what's their role in it. Persona analysis. Not sure. It's really a term that's not highly used, but within the business analysis world and activities, it is, because what you're doing is you're taking almost that stakeholder register and taking it deeper and a step further, because you want to understand the classes of users and understand their needs. Have you done that? If it is something about a product, about a technology or something that way, or even the people using the process that you're implementing. So the objective and the point of persona analysis is to paint a picture. You want to, yes, classify and document and know how to communicate with stakeholders, but you want to paint a picture of your customer or that end user and bring them to life, because that's going to help you understand that end state better and what makes them tick, and are we hitting those boxes for the requirements and for their job functions to be done, right? That's the whole thing. And it also helps you, once you understand it, helps you to tell your team and have your team who's doing the development and in this project to understand it as well. Okay, so those behaviors and what those requirements are for those behaviors. Additional key terms, the RACI chart, the good old responsible, accountable, consult, and inform chart that just does that. It's really defining who's involved. You've identified those stakeholders, right? So during this project, what are they really going to be doing and what is their involvement? Retrospective, have you met with the stakeholders to explore their work, to even show, get to know what they're doing and what processes they follow, making sure that that is being built into the final solution and how to improve it. Planning techniques, have you used the appropriate approaches to further understand the work that needs to be accomplished? And collaboration point, obviously, is the business analysis plan, we've talked about this before, being built collaboratively with those stakeholders and then attaining the buy-in necessary to make sure it's built into the overall project plan. So lots of collaboration that needs to take place. I've probably said that word more than a lot of words today, but it's very, very important. All right, we'll keep rolling. The next business analysis knowledge area is elicitation. What are the first two? Anyone?
Stakeholder engagement.
That was the one we just did. And what's the first one prior to that?
Needs assessment.
Needs assessment. So needs assessment, stakeholder engagement, and now elicitation. So what we're saying is, have we planned, prepared, and drawn out important information from the various sources? So that's pretty general, but literally you've got to determine, and we talk about this on the next slide, what approach you're even going to use, right, to draw some things out, prepare to draw it out from preparing for the elicitation, conduct it, and then confirm what you got and confirm the results of what you did draw out, right? So these are the processes, but specific to these processes, we want to be able to go into depth in these areas, because you need to think through how it's going to be approached. Are you scheduling the right things to prepare for it and get the right materials to prepare for it, then conduct it, and then make sure that you follow up from what you have elicited and show the results of that, and then review with that to make sure that everyone's on the same page and know how you're moving forward. So lots of back and forth. Something very key to remember here is that eliciting requirements is not equal to, and it is not the same thing as gathering requirements. Believe that or not. You think that's a true statement?
I do.
It is for many reasons, but we give you some guide here to say exactly what we mean by that. So you can see on the slide that illicit requirements, excuse me, draws out enough information from those stakeholders and many other sources. So you should be getting it from different areas. The business analyst helps those stakeholders define what the problem is and how, it's going to be done, what is going to be done to address it. Sometimes valuable information is not in the form that it can be readily used. So you've got to figure out what to do with that. And then requirement elicitation results in information needs to become the basis to complete any other activity. Whereas gathering requirements implies that the stakeholders already have or know and have a full understanding of what they even need or want. And they're just handing it over to you to say, here is what we are needing and put it in place to make the change happen. Do we understand the difference? Drawing out literally means drawing it out. So listening and getting the information because you're trying to see what really is going on to know, right, what to do about it versus the stakeholders already know and they're just going to tell you because they have a full understanding and then you just go with it. So there is a difference. Sometimes it's described as the same thing in business analysis, but it is not. So keep that in mind. So then it might even prompt us to ask either ourselves in these roles or in a project, are we really business analysts or are we business advisors? When you hear that, how do you react?
I don't know if I know what a business is.
Advisor is versus an analyst.
I don't think that's a good point. I think that it's a great question, but I think how that role is viewed is very different than from the person doing the work versus how that role is seen by a leader or stakeholder.
Good. So an advisor is more of a role that, okay, I have taken what you've given me because you already know and you're just handing it over and I'm advising based on that and my experience and expertise on how to make the changes versus drawing out and analyzing to see if those requirements are what needs to be taking place to that change to have the end result everybody's looking for. That's really it. But you're exactly right. How that's viewed in each organization or even by projects sometimes is really going to tell a lot of the story. Yeah. The key takeaway in either case is exactly what we said at the beginning. Eliciting requirements is not the same or it's not equal to gathering requirements, and just know how to draw out and how to elicit and get, either way to get the requirements. Okay. So I think, there's ways to do this and you guys have probably done it, but not only from an individual, shadowing or going through a work day sometimes with individuals to see how they do their work and eliciting by asking questions that way. Focus groups are another way. Anytime, you can elicit with prompting questions and putting workflows together based on what you're hearing. Drawing it out is really the key. Okay. Analysis. So this is our fourth business analysis knowledge area. See, I'm already starting to, tongue tie. So it's analysis. We have we examined and documented that the information is what it is in such a way that it really reflects not only the stakeholders' needs, but it aligns with the business objectives and enables the project team, everyone, to identify possible solutions. So what you're eliciting, what you have gathered, what you are determining within that needs assessment and stakeholder engagement. Now you are drawing out even more requirements and details. Is that aligning and going to enable the project team and in the whole project team to start to identify possible solutions, right? So you making sure that the analysis, that the information is there to do the analysis to begin to build the solution and the relevant and appropriate solution. So the processes within analysis, thinking ahead about how analysis will even be performed and being ready to discuss that with the project team, creating structured representative models to facilitate further analysis by identifying the gaps. That's also a process. You're going to refine and document and elaborate requirements at the appropriate level of detail and at the appropriate time, because things will progress and you're going to have some information about it, then you'll get more, but you're constantly refining that. You're defining acceptance criteria as to what would constitute the solution being developed successfully. So making sure that you know what success looks like in this project and to those stakeholders and to the sponsorship and to that organization, and you identify that criteria that when you accept this criteria we've agreed upon, that means this is successful. So you're defining that. And then you're verifying whether the requirements for a product, service, or system complies with all regulations, any kind of specifications, any imposed conditions or something that might be, regulatory or on a temporary basis. And then you're validating that those requirements that you have just gathered, right, really meet the needs of the customer and the other stakeholders. You uncover and examine any assumptions or uncertainties. You're trying to do that all along the way because those are risks, and you need to make sure that any risk is identified, and that if that affects your success or your project, you need to talk about how you're going to mitigate that or minimize that risk. And you're identifying, analyzing, and comparing solution design options, costs, and feasibility to provide recommendations. So this part of the process, pretty time consuming it can be, depending on, obviously everything takes time within a project and you want to dedicate the appropriate amount of time, but really thinking through and getting from that organization and from that project exactly, how many are we going to analyze, or, how many am I going to, sit through or see or compare? How am I going to put that comparison together? So making sure you're identifying that and putting the rules together for that, for the design options and any cost is also important before you can even assess them. Make sure you know what you're going to be assessing.
So Pam, I have a question for you.
Yes. Yep.
Before you move on, if you could go back to that previous slide.
Yes.
A couple of questions, actually. One, can is sometimes the analysis processes defined as problem solving?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And here's where I'm going with this. I have a dear friend who's retired from Johnson & Johnson. He was in the manufacturing side of things, where they were responsible for manufacturing their needles for their different products that use those, and they have a very strict tolerance level to with which to manufacture X amount of waste, and certain parameters and length and tensile strength and whatnot. And so I'm thinking of him, as I was hearing you articulate these different bullet points and wondering if the project or the analysis to be done was to determine whether or not you could gain greater tolerance levels, tighter tolerance levels, or decrease the manufacturing costs, increase output, whatever. At this stage of analysis, would you have enough information to be able to answer those questions? And I'm not sure that you would.
Right. It's a very good point, and you will not. I mean, more times than not, you're not going to have all that you need at this stage of the business analysis work, which is why it's so important that you, as that business analyst and serving in that role, know how to go back, right, and refine and add to what you're doing, because every project is progressively elaborated, right? This is exactly what that means too. So for the project that happens, but guess what? For the analysis work that needs to take place, you know, and you go with at that point what you have. But then there are all kinds of things to follow back up on, because you've given them enough at this point to know even to how to start to problem solve, just like you said. And based on those conversations, that will take you back to knowing that this is a requirement now or not, or how we're going to cut costs now because we have more information, right? So constantly coming back to that. But that's a very good point. Yep. If it's a smaller project or something, you know, you may have more. You may have everything or so much up front that you'll be able to do a detailed analysis and get right to it. But more times than not on projects, you won't. Hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. All right. So key terms here. Obviously, there's a lot that could be within analysis. What we're focusing on is verify and validate. So that's what we mean within the key terms of the analysis part. So you're looking that verification is more internal. Think of it that way. Validation is more external. Okay, so verification is just what we have. It's evaluating whether a product, service, or system complies with specifications, regulations, imposed conditions, anything to do with, right, what's going to occur before or after something is changed, right? So validation is ensuring that it's, you know, it's going to happen and it's imposed, or excuse me, it's performed by the members of that solution team, that we know that that product, service, or system really meets the needs of that customer and other stakeholders. And it's very clear, right? It's clear enough that those requirements are going to be used and used properly, because we're going to construct them properly because of the requirements that we elicited. So as you're reviewing that, that becomes more external on the validation side. Okay. Questions about that? But there needs to be continual, just like we have, confirmation, right? Walking through those requirements as much as you can, making sure that the back and forth is there, right? As far as a project approach to do that, you know, choosing the project approach that allows that to happen more easily through a hybrid delivery, right? Or a hybrid approach would probably be a good thing. Yes.
Maybe we're going to get into it here coming up, but I'm wondering if, so as a BA, you've gathered all these different requirements, or you've elicited them, you have them in some order grouped together. At what point are you prioritizing them, or at least asking the stakeholders what's mandatory that you have to have and what's considered nice to have, so you can prioritize them from a requirements perspective. So
Yep. It's typically recommended and done hopefully in and with elicitation, but before you try to analyze, if that makes sense, right? Before you're getting into more of the analysis. But it's also going to come out in the analysis because of more information that you're going to have. Then after the analysis, you get more, you have to come back and make sure that you have added any other requirements. Prioritization sometimes changes. So if that helps at all to get a picture, a couple of places would be my answer, but try and draw out as much of that as you can in elicitation, if that helps.
thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Traceability and monitoring. So this is our 5th business analysis knowledge area. And what we're trying to do here, really, have we built and maintained the requirements and the product scope for whatever was drawn out to at the beginning? Are the product requirements baselined? Was there any of that baseline? Have proposed requirement changes been assessed for any impacts? So a little bit of what you're talking about may take place here too, Alan, because there could be changes. But are we managing those required updates that are taking place to those requirements? And or are we really managing all the business analysis deliverables here, right? So you're monitoring what has been drawn out, what is required, what's traceable, and how are we managing that? And is this where any change management also starts to take place within the confines of the project? Because some of, you're getting farther along, it may, be in some testing, it may be in some use at this point. So there may be more organizational change and the people side of all this that come into play. So taking all that into account for the monitoring piece, but this is traceability and monitoring. So here are the processes for that. And within these processes, we're going to consider how traceability will be performed and defined. You're defining how those requirement changes will be managed, really. That's what's taking place in this process or in this area. So what we're defining, how are we going to perform, how to trace it, and is it really the right requirement and being traced appropriately, right? And then how is a change to that requirement going to be monitored? Tracing or setting relationships between and among requirements and other product information. So relationships could also be some of that prioritization. Negotiating and confirming which requirements should be incorporated and approved. It might be all of them. From your priority list, if you get to here and it changes, or you end up taking something forward, different, but definitely figuring out and confirming exact requirements that will be in here that are being taken forward to be approved, and then examining changes or defects that arise during the project as changes are agreed upon. So you're examining what happened. There was a change, you're recognizing it, it's come up, you're incorporating what that means to the project, and everyone agreed this is how it's going to be handled. You're making sure that you're monitoring that along the way as well. Key terms to think about. We just want to make sure that you understand traceability for sure. So what we mean is it's the ability to track product requirements from their origin to the deliverables that satisfy them. Think of it like using a GPS or Google Maps or something, right? To get from one place to another and back again. But are we tracking those requirements from their origin, right? Exactly how they were using it to begin with, or what they are wanting to change from how they're using it. And are they being satisfied, right? Are you able to trace all that? Is there traceability to that? And then obviously the benefits listed is why, and that will help with understanding why you want to meet those stakeholder expectations and needs because of the benefits that it has. Additional key terms in this knowledge area: story mapping, story slicing, and backlog management. So story mapping are user stories sequenced in a way that they're based on business value and the order users perform them in. So really it's just a technique to make sure that you're taking the information, the requirements, the workflow, what's happening based on what they're doing and the sequence of that, and using it to order, right? Is it in the right order that they perform their work? Story slicing is a technique that's used to split requirements or user stories from the higher to the lower levels. This could be some of the prioritization to help with that. And then the backlog management are requirements that can't be implemented, maintained in a requirements repository for future consideration. So there will be tons of things, probably, lots of times there is, that will not become part of this solution, right? Or part of, those requirements that are not going to be a priority in this. So how are we capturing that and still maintaining it, because they need to have future consideration, and that's typically through a backlog management or a backlog. Okay, questions about that before we go into our last one here? All right, so here we are at our final business analysis knowledge area, which is the solution evaluation. Have we validated the solution? Here we are, here it is. Has an evaluation been done on how well the solution meets the business needs and how well it was delivered? Are we referring back to, was everything zipped up and collaborated together? Back to that zipper slide again, right? How can those knowledge areas of business analysis be zipped up and made cohesive throughout? Was that done in part of the delivery of this solution? And then also know that this is that area in that zipper slide that may extend beyond the formal close of the project. So remember, there were two within business analysis in that framework. The needs assessment, which kind of starts before the project is officially kicked off. And this one, as far as evaluation of the solution, and these processes extend beyond the formal closure before, even after it's done. So the processes within this knowledge area, you can see evaluating a solution to determine whether the implemented solution is delivering that business value that was defined at the beginning. You're determining which aspects of the organization and/or the solution will be evaluated. You need to do that, in this, so once it's implemented and done, how to evaluate it and how will performance be measured. How do you know that it was successful? By whom is going to, who's going to do that and when? Deciding what to do with the results once you have them, right? So how do you evaluate them from a comparison of the defined acceptance criteria against the solution, and really what are we going to do with these results and the info from the evaluation? And then solution acceptance, which is facilitating a decision on whether to release a partial or full solution into that production, and then eventually to an operational team, right? Because that's what a project does, passes on to the operational team, and then the transitioning knowledge about what has taken place to that operational team is also a very important process. You need to make sure that's outlined and you have that acceptance criteria for the whole solution. Key terms to take away from this one: facilitated workshops, focus groups, interviews, and observations. And honestly, these deliverables and terms is in the solution evaluation, because that's how you're going to get, and obtain some of the evaluation. But a lot of these can also be used, as we referred to, in the needs assessment and some other ways. And these are some other, tools or techniques to use to try and draw out some information. But facilitated workshops is just that. You're working toward a stated objective under a structured environment to make sure that workshop is effective to draw out what you need. Focus groups, pretty much doing the same thing, but you're learning more about deficiencies in this and trying to focus on maybe a particular question, particular area, get that feedback directly that way. Interviews, this can be one-on-one or also in groups, but you're really gaining the insights from those individual stakeholders more times than not, from where they're doing the new thing, or they're following the new process or using the new tool. And then also can be drawn out by observation. So directly viewing how the stakeholders perform their jobs in their own environment with that new solution, and scheduling those observations to kind of, job shadow or look or observe to see, once they're doing it, are they doing it according to, what the criteria was, and is it effective? Are there still gaps, etc.? All right. Any questions about the knowledge areas, anything within business analysis work at this point? Again, knowing that, yes, we made our way through those 6 business analysis knowledge areas, and we're going to bring it all together to show you, there's more ways to find out information. This is one step or one tool in your toolbox to do that. But the detail, from other classes really becomes evident once you're diving deeper. But the goal is to give the information in the introduction and lay the foundation for business analysis work and what a business analyst's skill sets are and how that fits into the overall project, and the importance of how a project manager and business analysts collaborate for success, because that is key. But are there any questions about anything that we've talked about, or any comments? All right, well, here is a slide for some additional tools that can assist you during a project. Obviously, you have the template on the LMS and receive that as part of this class. The next 2 are shared as part of our Business Analysis Foundations course. And then the rest of the list and those templates are part of our best practices in business analysis course for that. This is one more look and really in review for what we discussed, right? The basic business analysis vocabulary, some basic terminology around that, because it is important that as a business analyst, we know the common terminology, the common language, the ways we can collaborate with the project and the OCM managers. So the importance of the value of business analysis for project success, understanding that relationship, just as we described, between the business analysis, project management, and organizational change management structure, and then hopefully learning how to apply some of the business analysis skills we talked about and identified those competencies, and how to do so using some very basic tools, templates, and techniques. So that was review that way. And really, we also provide additional professional organizations. If you're not a part of these, here's some great resources for you that way. These will be listed obviously in that PDF version as well, so you can access that information. And then we will just leave you with, here's some courses to think about, because this course was obviously a building block, as we have said. And then we have others listed. You can find those on our learning management system. And we also leave you with additional reading to make sure that you have the guide, which is from PMI, and the guide standards on business analysis, and where to access the practice guide for business analysis practitioners, the PMBOK, the BABOK, all of the box, and just leave you with all kinds of resources to tap into. And obviously, at any point, if anyone has any questions about anything that we can help with at Health Tech and Celerity, we're open to doing that always. If there's a resource you would like to, have input on, or you need help in finding resources, and obviously any other classes that you would like to take from us is always a great thing too. But do not forget, please, to complete the training evaluation, which is on the LMS. And as you do that, because that really helps us in our continuous improvement, and then the metrics to make sure that we are hitting the mark for what's happening that way. But it will also release your certificate that you can obtain the PDU. It has that PDU information in it, etc. So any last comments or questions? Tara, do you have anything to add or anything you would like to comment on before we close?
No, I think you covered it all. I learned a lot.
Good. Thank you. Let's see.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Really, really appreciate you choosing to spend time with us. And I certainly am a resource anytime. I wish you all the best in everything you do. So if there's nothing else, then we will close, and everybody have a great rest of the day and an awesome weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. You too.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.